everybody, happy Saturday. I realize I'm not gonna see y'all for Love and Marriage Huntsville. Um, so I said, let me hop on here because there have been too many things happening in the world. And I said, let me touch base with y'all. First of all, if you're watching this, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Also, happy National Margarita Day. If you didn't know, now you know. I do plan to enjoy the festivities. That's why I'm doing this at noon. Okay. So, ASAP Rocky, you got off, even though we all know you are guilty as hell. Congratulations. But see, the suge night of it all is that when you get lucky like that too many times over and over again, you tend to fuck up again. But okay, I ain't mad. I don't want my girl Rihanna to be alone with her kids unnecessarily. ASAP Rocky has just never, even though I'm happy, I love Rihanna. Box over here. He has never sat well with me since he smacked the shit out of a female fan. And it was always, that's why it was so unsettling to me when she started dating him because of the Chris Brown stuff. So ASAP Rocky, okay. Moving on to things that actually affect our lives. So CPAC had its national convention as it always does. If you don't know what CPAC is, allow me. It's the Conservative Political Action Conference. And even its logo just makes my brain go, oh my gosh, the racists are colliding. Nevertheless, so approximately 6,000, a little over that, IRS employees have been fired or laid off in the name of government efficiency. I'm trying to figure out, do we have to pay our taxes? This is the first time I have done my taxes and not filed before March. But I don't know how this is going to shake out. I also don't know how they plan to collect taxes. And the bottom line is yes. Are taxes too high, especially for people here in New York? Yes. Do the Southerners get away with getting all of this extra government funding for this, that, and the other while not paying taxes into the larger pot because they keep the cost of living cheap for them, but then depend on the government, the same government that they blame Black people for taking all the resources from? Yes. But nevertheless, I will say for all the things that happen in New York City, it is something to having public libraries throughout the city that you can access resources, go to different office talks for free. Those kind of things are worth investing. No, I don't have any kids, but I want kids to have an education, and people who can't pay or shouldn't even be paying $50,000 to $80,000 a year for a private school education can have one. Okay? Now, how y'all plan to pay for this war? These two wars y'all are involved in, and God knows whatever other colonization efforts you're continuing to carry out in Puerto Rico and wherever else. I don't know how y'all plan to get the money, especially since the majority of our budget goes to defense. And don't think because you Google it and it says 13.3% of the U.S. budget goes to defense, that's a goddamn lie. It has been well over 50%. When they had that government shut down, all of a sudden all the government websites weren't working, that's what they put up. I am not stupid. Okay, but just in case you were wondering, this is what a government coup d'etat looks like, except for you voted for it. Not you like my people, but you know what I mean. So according to CNN.com, also, not to mention a couple of weeks ago, Trump fired the employees that were part of the National Nuclear Security Administration, also known as the NNSA. And the NNSA is under the Department of Energy, by the way. So this so-called Department of Government Efficiency, which we are calling DOGE, began firing these employees throughout the government to cut waste. The problem, in addition to other problems, is that a presidential administration like this one, who is overwhelmingly committed to war, y'all forgot, committed to war, and trying to make a fucking resort out of Gaza and the land of the Palestinians so the Israelis can benefit while they carry out genocide, kind of forgot you need your fucking nuclear engineers. So y'all done fired all the nerds, the ones who really know science, not the ones who got lucky and made a business out of stuff like SpaceX. Okay? Y'all fired all the nerds who are making more than enough. They can afford to not come back. Now y'all want them to hurry up and come back. Oh, we made a mistake. How the hell you not know? Oh, I know. Because you're inexperienced, haven't learned, are so busy doing the most extremist things you didn't even think. And that's how extremism works. You end up undercutting yourself eventually. I will never forget, I had a U.S. history teacher my junior year in high school. And one of them, he said, the problem with being extremely conservative or extremely liberal, he said, is that it's like saying something is as far from the east as it is from the west. And that the bottom line is we live on Earth, which is circular. So no matter how far the east is from the west, they end up meeting in the same place if you're not careful. That's why being extreme, left or right, is dangerous. And this was coming from a conservative who had Bush Cheney up in his classroom, but he said that, and I have never forgotten him. Anyway, but I think that fits here. So y'all fired the nerds who were there to carry out your evil duties against humanity anyway. Hell, the other presidents knew not to do that because war is what the U.S. does. Yo, child, this shit is gonna implode. Okay, just implode. And I'm gonna sit back here like the black woman I am, like the 92% I am, and no, I don't give a fuck that Amanda Seals was pissed off about it. No, 92%. Yeah. Yup. And I don't dislike Amanda Seals. I kind of have, I agree with some things she said, disagree with, but I'm just saying. Yep, I'm a proud part of that 92% because we told y'all. Anyway, and the problem is also, in addition to all the other things I've listed, is that you have this South African trying to not only reinstate old Jim Crow from the U.S., okay, but to move it to a dictatorship from the presidency. Like, it is insanity. While y'all complain about immigrants, and y'all voted for him to push the immigrants out. See, the hidden part about that was that's Mexicans, whether they from Nicaragua or Venezuela or Mexico. That meant non-white people. You see? All right, speaking of South Africans, here's another one that's about to get to business. Trevor fucking Noah. Trevor Noah, shut the fuck up. Now, I've seen Trevor Noah in Central Park one time. I had a friend who was South African, and it said, oh, he's visiting or whatever, will you come? And it's in Central Park, and it's free, whatever. So I went, cool, I didn't watch his show a lot, but I would see clips, and I would think they were funny, okay? Entertainers are not intellectuals. Comedians are not intellectuals. I'm not saying they can't say smart things, but the reason why they're famous and in front of us is not because they're intellectuals. It's because they entertain. Okay, so I need you to stick to the rivers and lakes that you're used to and slow your damn roll. And here I go, and I'm going to explain why. Okay, don't worry. I have no problem explaining to people why they're wrong. I don't know what it is with people coming over here and feeling like they have the right to give Americans history lessons and political advice based on documentaries they've watched and little excerpts they may have read here and there. He is not an American. He is not an African American. And he has made comments like this that are in the same vein, not exactly the same thing. Where he said, I can never understand why so many African Americans wanted to come to Africa. I was like, and this was in a stand-up that was on like Netflix, I think. But I remember him saying this. I was like, you guys have jewelry and Benz G-Wagons. Y'all living good life. But then I realized you guys don't have or know your culture. Now, granted, he could have misspoke and meant, I didn't realize that maybe y'all have been disconnected from your ancestral African roots after, growing up in Africa and being connected. But the bottom line is, regardless, he still misspoke. First of all, we have plenty of culture, so much so that people across the world copy it, manufacture it, and make money off of it, imitating it. Because I can't tell you how much 50 Cent and Tupac I heard the whole time I was in South Africa. Okay? Now, we have plenty of culture, which is why in South Africa, Trevor Noah, you knew all about our music, from Lionel Richie to Tupac to all the greats, Beyonce, Prince. That's why you knew about them. Michael Jackson, you knew about them. Our movies and cultural practices. And then you came over here and imitated them and got rich like everybody else who imitates African American culture, but is not African American. And white people have been doing it for some time, but white people really like to put those other immigrants, where we had that Cynthia Erivo, I think, wasn't she the one who played Harriet Tubman? And I'm not even saying she didn't do a great job, but I think that it's an African American story produced in America. And she didn't play that part so well that an African American could not have. But usually when you bring people over here, it's already hard enough to get in as an immigrant, especially a black one. And they are indoctrinated with this culture that says to them, they're not black like them, and they're not going to push you politically. They're not going to demand certain things. They're going to act like everything they came from over there wasn't about race, so on and so forth. Like Britain ain't colonized a fourth of the African continent and India and all these other places. No, no, no. It wasn't like that for us. Okay, then. You lying bastards. Anyway, and this is how you got rich, Trevor Noah, imitating that, but still not being like us enough, to benefit financially. Okay, so don't play with me. Don't play. All right, and telling us that integration was bad, and then you sit there with Rua Benjamin, a Princeton University professor, who apparently, and I'm gonna tell you this, Spelman sis, you a little too starstruck for me. Not that I was ever really impressed with your work, if I'm being frank. I did appreciate the speech you made last year about how Spelman students should be protected for protesting in the name of Palestine. But I also was thinking, well, I've seen a lot of your work that also makes me go, but the speech was good. But clearly, you're up here agreeing with Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah, first of all, is not even equal to you intellectually to have a conversation about it. That's number one. Okay. Number two, if you think integration was bad, then get your black ass out of Princeton of all fucking places. Then leave. Then leave. Go get a job somewhere else. I don't know. Maybe your old alma mater, Spelman. Or just a little bit southward to DC and Howard. Oh, it's not that bad, right? Miss me. Okay? Miss me. So Trevor Noah sitting there saying, you know, was segregation really bad? Just take the negative parts out of it. Let me explain something to everybody. The whole goddamn thing was negative. Sure, black people have always found ways to make $1 out of 15 cents, but that's not the goddamn point. Black teachers and principals were under constant, the ones that where they could actually have a small schoolhouse with limited public funds, they were constantly under white supervision to make sure they were indoctrinating black kids that could go to school, that didn't have to work all the time as sharecroppers, with their ideals and hope, and with indoctrinating them to believe white supremacy and that their position was always to be subservient to African Americans. Those are facts. And if you want to go to a more recent book, I mean, there's many, but more recent books like Fugitive Pedagogy, which was an excellent book, you can see where Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history, was not only churning out books about African American history after he was told Black people had none, but he was making textbooks and pamphlets for African American teachers to send to the South so they could educate Black kids about their own history. Okay? But think about all the work that fucking takes. ASALH, the Association of African American Life and History, that used to be the Association of Negro Life and History, that he started in 1915, February 1915, the same time we had the first Negro History Week celebrated. That place, that institution that still exists, he lived on the top floor. It was he didn't buy a home for himself. The home was where people would come to get Black history information, and he had a room in his own house. Think about how much better he could have been had he had the resources to do what he needed to do. So I'm not gonna play this game, this Hotep game of no, Black people were better off back when they were segregated, this, that, and the other. I'm not done. Stay with me. You don't have to agree with everyone. I want you to stay with me until I finish, though. So Black schools were often built privately, many of them by Black women, because they couldn't get access to public funding. That is already, education is a basic human right, even before they wrote it down in the UN Charter in 1948. The ability to self-actualize and achieve by having the ability to read and write and function in your culture, when that is denied, that is dehumanizing. Moving on. And the Klan would often bomb and destroy schools, okay, businesses, churches, and other things that Black people established separately because they had to establish them separately because we weren't allowed in them. That's why to tell me that HBCUs aren't a representation of the real world is so goddamn offensive. First of all, and D.L. Hughley was absolutely right when he was like, y'all start in the middle. Why were HBCUs created in the first place? Because y'all didn't want us in y'all schools. And then the HBCUs where we become incubators for Black thinkers, despite Rua Benjamin and her behavior with Trevor Noah, incubators of Black thinkers, then all of a sudden it's discriminatory when Black people succeed. Oh, it's not reality. Yes, the fuck it is. If we separate because of white supremacy, how the fuck is that not reality? No, what you meant was it to be separated and us to fail. And when we started being the feeder schools, and you found out that we were better trained, and I know this for a fact, I can say this about myself going into UCLA. I remember sitting in those graduate seminars going, these were the motherfuckers I was competing with? These motherfuckers are stupid. But they had gone to private high schools. They had gotten into places like Berkeley based on their money. And then I was like, and they don't know shit. That's why I'm not impressed with the names of these schools. I know these people are not smart. They're often well connected. And because they hire each other, that's why all your presidents have been to Harvard, Princeton, Yale. It's the same Ivy League group. That's why. Because they're all in it together in that way. Moving on. And they did this, and the Klan bombed schools, churches, businesses. The same people burning crosses talking about it's God's will that they are in charge. But you burn the cross, something all the way wrong with all y'all. They did this without any legal repercussions because their violence against us was legal and supported, especially by the federal government, who refused to pass anti-lynching laws that people have been fighting for since lynching had started, from Frederick Douglass to Ida B. Wells to the NAACP throughout the 20th century. And then you want to try to hand that shit to us in 2021 when we asking you to have the cops stop killing us. Anyway, and if it wasn't negative, Trevor Noah, then take your ass back to South Africa, okay, which has yet to fix the desecration from apartheid. Okay, who learned from the best? Apartheid was built based off how impressed white people who had colonized South Africa were with the Jim Crow system in America. Ain't that about a bitch? You don't need to tell me shit about my history. Go and take care of the shit in your own backyard. If that's the case, then go back there and live. Look at those townships, the kind of poverty those people have, and their lack of access to things like food and clean water. And I'm not saying this based on pictures or, National Geographic shit, because, National Geographic only talks to animals and white people who know about the animals. No. I've been there. And they make money off the tours Americans do, and other people from other countries go to watch the poverty in townships. I still feel guilty for going. I was a part of a research trip, and I didn't really understand where we were. And I was like, wait, we're in somebody's house who's living here now? Like, what? Huh? And I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for that. And I shouldn't. But I say that to say I know what it looks like. Because the last time I checked, you don't get to go in the housing projects in any city around here, take a tour, get paid, and you just think Black people are going to let, or whoever's living there is just going to let you do it. Okay? Then make your career there, Trevor Noah. Because trust me, the remnants of apartheid are everywhere. They are not hard to see. And then make your appeal to the other Black South Africans there on how things were better during apartheid. They will stone you to fucking death. And because now you have moved into the structure of white supremacy. So everything's bad because everything was so much better under apartheid, right? And y'all are the majority. They took y'all over in y'all's country. Apartheid officially became law in South Africa, and there have been fights. to take over their land since around the late 17th century. But apartheid itself didn't become law until 1948. And look at the damage the British and Dutch did to Black South Africans. We were brought over here on an entirely different continent, changing our literal physical immunities or lack thereof to the environment. That is why Black women suffer from things like alopecia, lupus, what's the other one that a lot of Black women do? Oh, Black people deal with sickle cell. All of those are environmental things because we were forced off a continent and there's a whole Atlantic Ocean between us. That's 400 years. Apartheid ain't even have no 100th anniversary. And we were enslaved longer than we've been free in this country. Like, as I live and speak. How dare you? How dare you? And this is how I know you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But people like you get a mic, and that's why I don't like it. Because you spewing that foolishness. All right, we were brought over here to an entirely different continent against our will. This was not our land. Chained like animals and denied education and any other form of freedom, like even physical freedom, for nearly 3 centuries. And you got the nerve to say integration wasn't good. How dare you? You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And yes, we can talk about how even Dr. King, toward the end of his life, and Malcolm X as well, toward the end of his life, said they feared we were integrating into a burning house. And their point was because the structure of white supremacy can be so damaging to Black people through not only physical violence, but the psychological violence. And what they do in forcing us to be a part of their world, right? But we were still being forced to be a part of their world, even under Jim Crow. And so when people like Martin Luther King are talking about integration, the part they don't tell you is that he was demanding that there be a redistribution of the wealth in this country because it doesn't cost anything to desegregate. Matter of fact, you get paid by being able for Black people to be able to give their money at a restaurant, to go to the movies and just enjoy life. And he made the point that when you segregate somebody, you inevitably discriminate against them. That's the goal. So the thing is, the structure, yeah, maybe integration of white supremacy reigned any fucking way. Okay? But integration means being able to go to the goddamn emergency room and not die because you're trying to travel 6, 7, 8 hours to another state to an all-Black health facility to see if you will survive. Because public funds have been denied to be used for your health. There's no hospital at all. And then when they do, bring some doctors down there. It's for the goddamn Tuskegee experiment and the Mississippi appendectomy where Black women had their uteruses removed without their approval or any notice or notification, told they had tumors. Fannie Lou Hamer is a very famous example and could never have kids because of it. Okay? So miss me, all right? See, segregation means integration means your kids won't have to go 3 hours on foot back and forth to school because they refused to place one in your neighborhood. And they did it to make it purposely difficult for you to acquire education, the very thing you need to be able to self-actualize, produce, and be a productive citizen, and the very things you need to challenge the system that oppresses you. And I know just with kids that have gone to private school and have scholarships, some of them would take 2 hours on the train to come into school, 2 hours back. And I was, oh, they're late. I don't know why she's always so tired. What the hell do you mean you don't know why? Because this is the way you move up. But the reason why they have to try to get a scholarship to go to private school is because the ones in their neighborhood are so under-resourced that this is the option that they feel like they have to take advantage of. And it requires this superhuman strength to do it. Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, integration is a necessity. Okay? So shut the fuck up, move out of your white neighborhood, Trevor Noah, into Brownsville in Brooklyn and live on $20,000 a year in New York City and tell me what's so damn good about segregation and legal separation that we should want it again. Because even with integration, they still allow this. This is still the country we live in. We don't have one to go back to. You have one to go back to. And that's my issue with all these Mexicans and all these other people, all the stuff that they do. And then they actually have a whole ass country to go back to. We have been disconnected from our land. We can't go nowhere else but jail or die. And I don't even like to compare, because I know what the game is. I know what they're trying to do to Mexicans and all, the Latin American immigrants and all that shit. I know what the game is. That's why I didn't vote for the bullshit, okay? Despite y'all's anti-blackness. But y'all did, because y'all thought they was just talking to us. And they were, but they weren't just talking to us. And it ain't even taking long for y'all to find out. So we have the privilege of retrospect, right? To look back and say, yeah, there are a lot of problems with integration. Yeah, because there's a problem with a white supremacist nation. Okay, so while integration may not have been the best solution without all the terms already written out, Black people had to do something. That's like saying, oh, I don't know what's going to happen to Black people after they're free. Hell, they didn't know either, but they knew that shit was a whole lot better than being enslaved. Like, stop playing with me. You got to get one place to get to the next place. Don't let people fool you that everything should have been planned out. But because that was a system we were used to, at least we were used to it. No. 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 The fuck? Anyway. And don't get me wrong. I understand that with integration, you had to assimilate into it. But don't tell me Black people were better off then, and that Black people haven't learned, as they always had, even when they were segregated, to act one way in front of Black people and then pretend to be stupid in front of white people just to fucking make it. And when you say shit like that, you are undermining everything my grandparents had to do, my great-grandparents had to do, my parents have had to do, I've had to learn how to do. Because of what we've been through. You don't know what you're speaking on. I wouldn't go down to South Africa and then start telling people, see, this is the reason why y'all are poor. If only y'all could get real good in the connections with the American capitalist entertainment system. You see that rainbow dancing y'all doing, y'all can make some real money off of that. But see, y'all don't know how to do that. That would sound wild. And I wouldn't disrespect other people like that. And this is what I mean by people come over here. And people do this to Americans all the time. And then Americans are so used to critiquing themselves when it comes to immigrants, and granted, because of the way our government acts, we do need to check ourselves. But my thing is, I don't know where that arrogance comes from, but the hell with you. Okay? Okay. All right? Because now I'm giving unnecessary history lessons, but you need it. Speaking of staying out of shit that you don't know anything about, Adam Housley, Tamera's husband. Now, Tamera, you know what? Racist as Adam Housley has been that way. He decides he's going to get on X, formerly known as Twitter. See how all this keeps connecting to South African Musk? And talk about how he grew up watching people pay for food with food stamps and then pull out a roll of cash to buy liquor. First of all, I know a lie when I hear that's number one. First of all, the internet already pulled your whole card. Okay, you didn't grow up near or around poor people, let alone Black people, because we know that's who you meant. No, you didn't have to say it. Okay, just like when people say, oh, Chirac and Chicago's violent. Who do you think they're talking about? They're not referring to all the decades of the dailies running that city and exploiting Black people and making them poor and forcing them all into one neighborhood and using the police to suppress them and then allowing gangs to get enough power to where they would kill each other and not have resources. No. It's just Black people who don't know how to behave. Miss me. Okay? You have never seen that. And damn sure not in the same store. This whole narrative around welfare and food stamps doesn't have to say African Americans or Black people. We know that's what they mean. When Ronald Reagan started that with the welfare queen, do you really want the welfare queen living off your tax dollars and them driving Cadillacs with food stamp money? First of all, to have to get those resources is already, to me, degrading, right? It takes a lot. Sure, there are people gaming the system. I'm sure there are exceptions to the rule, but the questioning that has been proven that happens to African Americans when they go to get support, and mind you, we didn't even start getting access in any significant form to unemployment insurance, welfare, food stamps until the mid 1960s. White people have been getting that since the Great Depression because the states determined whether or not black people got access to it. And in states like White Virginia, they had been eating off that kind of shit. And the man was allowed to stay in the house, whereas the rules in the urban cities was that the man couldn't be in the house in order for you to get it. Okay, so the hell with you. He's a racist. I knew that not only because he was on Fox News. Yes, that is enough. It's enough. It's enough. I knew that when I was watching a reality show and the way he would get all in his shoulders, when she would say, well, Tia said, we should be careful about spending X amount of money on the wedding because they were able to do it like this, or maybe we shouldn't move into a big new home so soon, this, that, and the other. And basically because work isn't consistent in Hollywood. Tia had been making that point. And he got all mad cut off, but who cares? It's your life. No, motherfucker. You want it to be your life with her money. Yes, her life and her lifestyle supplied by the money. Like the wedding she paid for because your parents didn't contribute when they could afford to contribute, and it was probably because they didn't want you to marry this black woman. His family, and let me tell you something, there was a scene I ain't never forgot. When they asked Tamera to help move this box of wine because his parents own this whole warehouse stuff. And she was like, well, help me. And he was like, why do you need help? The father-in-law was like, why do you need help? I was like, first of all, this is a woman. This is your warehouse. And 3, that's what the fuck you're supposed to do. I wouldn't even pick up that bottle of wine because I remember a white man trying to do that shit to me in California when we were setting up for the exams. And I was like, oh, because there was 2 white guys. I was like, y'all need to move the table or whatever. He was like, what do you mean us? Aren't you going to move it? I said, no. Like, first of all, that's what men are supposed to do. 2, I said, fine, I'll help you move it. And then I moved it a little bit and then dropped it while he was holding it. Yes, I did. Fuck the bullshit. I was pissed off. Don't play with me like that. So that, I ain't never forgot that either. And this is not the first time he's said or done this, which means a huge part of Tamera either agrees or she's in a relationship she can't get out of. So I want to be careful because at the same time, we didn't hear her say anything, but we also don't hear her say anything to the opposite. And we also know that whatever happens in their home, he is comfortable enough saying racist shit like that he is even more emboldened to always say it and make it public. Which, in case y'all didn't know, we wouldn't even know about this tweet or care about it if he wasn't married to her. So the hell with him, and that's all the attention I'm going to give him. Now, a lot of these policies, all these people getting fired and stuff without a cause from the government by a non-elected immigrant is possible because when America voted, back to the real stuff, the exception of the overwhelming amount of votes and support, with the exception of African American women at 92% and black men at 80%, everybody else thought those policies were directed towards black people that Trump was talking. Even with the immigration stuff, that's going to be their problem. And you could go on living your white life, your white adjacent life, your white almost life, and it was only going to come down on us. It doesn't surprise me, okay, that Trump is doing this. Now, he was doing this left and right, going over Congress, doing executive orders, so on and so forth. We always know they're going to come for us. Y'all know it too. Y'all just thought it would be only us. Okay, see, that was your mistake. And then poor white done had centuries to learn, and they still haven't learned because they're too busy embracing the psychological wage Du Bois talked about, that you'll vote against your own economic interests and stay poor just because you believe you're better than black people. And it's still true. Anyway, it doesn't surprise me that in the state of Georgia, shout out to the home state for all the wrong reasons, that your white representative in Congress, Representative Rich McCormick, okay, they was going off on him this week at a town hall. He supported the bill that would basically make it harder for women who change their names to match their husbands, which is how you're trained in the South. I didn't even know women didn't change their names really until I came to like New York and a little bit when I was out there in LA, and I just thought that was strange because everybody I knew did it. Because black people get judged for not having a family that looks coherent. Them white women they keep them family names. I learned that when I was in graduate school, and I was like, well, why wouldn't you? Well, I have a Jewish last name, and sometimes it helps me, sometimes it doesn't, but it has helped me more often. There was a girl, another woman, who sat there and told me that shit to my face in the office for teaching fellows who are assisting professors. She actually said, and she said it with just a kind of chill sort of thing. That's how I picked up on this shit. Anyway, so McCormick supports the bill in good Georgia, not only white supremacist, but dictatorship, authoritarian tradition, basically making it harder for women who change their names to match their husbands to have the proper ID by requiring a birth certificate to be able to vote. These people were in there mad, okay? Especially those white women, they were going in. And that white woman stood up and said very clearly with her whole chest and her soprano voice, that's voter suppression. I said, it is. It is. It is. But see, Georgia has been spearheading voter suppression efforts since Jim Crow. And as recent as the gubernatorial elections, when Stacey Abrams was running in 2018, 2022, and all these other elections where you can't hand out water in the hot, knowing how hot Atlanta gets, so on and so forth, to make sure black people be discouraged from voting. But see, that was fine, because see, that was once again meant for us. That was meant for us. You sitting a lack of poll workers, the people that stand up there longer, that was meant for us. That was voter suppression. We were screaming that in the streets. We're trying to get justice for Ahmaud Arbery and rioting, because that's essentially what white people have been doing to us all of this time, creating chaotic situations while they carry out their racism. And when we respond to it, y'all turn your head, worry about the CVS, the drugstore, the Kroger, anywhere else, the Publix that gets torn up. A store can be rebuilt, a person's life cannot be replaced. But see, once again, that was for us when they were shutting down the DMVs, where old people had to go and get photo ID and proof to prove that they were not dealing in voter fraud. There had only been 2 cases in Georgia in the 20th century. There hadn't even been a lot of cases of voter fraud, okay? Period. But it was okay when they were shutting down the DMVs and mostly black locales. This wasn't just in Georgia, but Alabama and stuff like that, because it locked us out in our voices. And now the extremism that I told you my teacher explained to me in high school hits you and you want to be mad. See, that's the thing. That's the thing. See, it eventually comes for everybody, because people get carried away. Y'all voted him in. He represents you and then tells you, I'm not going to have this conversation with you if you're going to talk to me like that. That's the way y'all talk to everybody. Them conservative, rude-ass Republicans talk like that to everybody. But see, he reminded you of your place as a white woman, didn't he? It didn't feel good, did it? But you would have been clapping had he done it to a black person. Yes, you would have. And that's the problem, because y'all deserve this. I know as an African-American, the worst is reserved for me. And I knew that when I voted for Harris. Because I do know historically and from my own individual experience that the worst things do happen to black people, even if I can't even imagine what's coming next, okay? But see, the difference is I've been prepared for this. See, we're not new to this. We're true to this, okay? And we also at least voted together in a way that would not be so disconnected from our interests. I know that these sort of purges in government where people are getting fired in the name of government efficiency will only further empower private employers to exploit their workers, threaten them with losing their jobs if they don't take less pay, this, that, and the other. And this has been the game. And they can fire them to supply their greedy habits because they just want to keep getting more and more money that they won't use, or they'll use it to destroy other people's lives. And that, quite frankly, to me, is a pathology that fuck studying, because people already know what pathology is. They need to be somewhere in a room with their arms tight, okay? Not being able to move, no sunlight, the same thing y'all do to black people who are on bad behavior in prisons, in solitary confinement, okay? Now, I don't typically agree with that, but you're a danger to fucking society. Anyway, But see, this situation, the reason why I said they deserve this is because this didn't have to be. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. I am somebody who stands with the Palestinians. I know what's happening to those people is genocide. I know what's happening to them when they stole them people's land in 1948 and then claimed, oh, never again, while you turn around and do the same thing to these Muslim people, take away their land. No, make Germany give up their fucking land. Those are the people that oppressed you. Y'all went and took those brown people's land, and they ain't having it. But now they're suffering, and their environment is suffering, and their babies are born with defects and abnormalities because of y'all. Y'all are not the victims. The Israelis are not the victims. Americans are not the victims. I understand that. I understood that even when I voted for Kamala Harris. And I know that the U.S. has aided Israel, who doesn't need any help carrying out this genocide, which is why our economy is struggling. It's not because of social programs that we all pay for in our taxes. It's because of the disproportionate aid that kept being supplied to Israel and Ukraine. But see, I voted strategically because I knew Kamala had limited power under Joe Biden. We could tell by the two main assignments he gave her. Protecting the border, which she had a plan for. The Republicans only voted against it so Trump could get credit for it when he got in, but going to use the same plan. And I knew with the insulin and diabetes and stuff like that, healthcare, a lot of issues facing African Americans, that's what she was giving control over. And people have talked about vice presidents can either be set up, and it's rare to be president, but they're always deeply limited by how close they can get based on what that president allows. Okay? Based on things Biden had assigned her. And she demonstrated that she could be challenged and pushed to do the right thing, which is why she started talking about ceasefire. Okay, even though she barely had 3 months to carry out a huge presidential campaign. So strategic votes do matter. But certainly when this was the alternative, he's not doing anything he didn't tell us he was going to do. He told everybody what he was going to do. He told them Latinos he was going to get rid of, but in their mind, that meant the Haitians. See, that meant, and see, this is the thing I talk about with the Caribbean people and the African immigrants that they don't get. They know you're from another country, but you are insular to them. I knew that when I voted for Kamala Harris, because those weren't even dog whistles when they were talking about y'all eating dogs and taking all the jobs, and them Ohio towns would have fallen apart without y'all's contributions. So regardless of any diaspora wars, whatever they call it, because we all have our different, ethnic differences within a race, so on and so forth. But that wasn't the point. I understood. See, because I'm not going to dismiss somebody else's humanity. But them Latinos jumped on that. This man hasn't been in office not 2 months. It hasn't even been a full 2 months. It feels like forever, but it hasn't even been a full 2 months. And we have an immigrant controlling the country who's trying to push the immigrants out. Because the immigrant was code word for Mexicans. It didn't matter what part of Latin America they came from. They're not white, and that's what it meant. He is a non-elected official taking over the government. And Trump is letting him, and it's going to be his undoing. Oh, and a Trump order that has led to the immediate shutdown of JFK's presidential library in Boston because they now can't pay employees. That happened earlier this week because of the federal layoffs. Luckily, they have reopened over the past 2 days to let people in for free because they don't have anybody they can pay to take the tickets. Meanwhile, his nephew, who is secretary for the Department of Health, Robert F. Kennedy, who had a worm in his brain and drove a dead whale on his station wagon, who doesn't believe in vaccines but does believe in eugenics, is working for the man who did it. Willingly and unapologetically. Now, if you ain't got no loyalty to your family, exactly. Once again, libraries and curriculum, see, that was supposed to hurt black people. See, because the whole thing is anything that makes white people look negative, this and the other, but they can make us look negative all day. See, that was only supposed to be for us. And y'all feeling it, and it ain't even 2 months in. Project 2025 was not hidden behind a paywall. I know, because I downloaded the PDF when they were putting it up. I wanted to know what they were saying. Now, all these people sounded very familiar, these ideas, because they had been carried out down south, in the deep south, certainly throughout my life, or attempts to reestablish it. But that's what happens when you don't learn. So get your shit together and get on it. And that's all I got to say. Happy National Margarita Day. I'll talk to y'all soon. Be sure to leave in the comments if you have, any stuff you want me to review or talk about. All right, see you soon.